speak here is the audio input capture with the microphone. So it's picking up noise now, you can see that. Desktop audio would be like if we were playing a video or something, would be what the desktop audio would be. Yeah, the one video. Hi, one viewer. Yeah, they can see this and do that. We're going to go back to the starting tune screen. Great. All right, so welcome everybody. It is 3:30, which means that, of course, it is time for one of our STEM shows, our afternoon STEM shows. And we do these shows every single day at 3:30. We do some sort of live demonstration. Today we're going to be doing a snake feeding, but if you come on a different day, it's going to be some other subject, some other educator talking about something else. And so if you keep tuning in, we're live on Twitch, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. You can go to any one of those platforms at 3:30 and see us doing something live here. So for our in-person audience that we have here, I will let you know that, again, we are live across a bunch of platforms here, so anything you're saying or doing is going to get picked up and be in a YouTube video, basically, on our channel forever, so be mindful, please. And similar, our internet audience that we have out there, I do have a live audience here today, so if I'm addressing somebody off camera, that's your answer. And before we get started, I'd just like to do a shout out to the Beltrami Electric Co-op, who's been underwriting these shows with their roundup program. So basically the way that works is you can elect to round up the nearest dollar on your bill, and then they use that money to fund various programs around the city. And so we're a beneficiary of the Beltrami Electric Co-op's roundup program, so big thanks to them. And what we are going to be doing today is feeding all 5 of our resident snakes that we have here at the Headwaters Science Center. So what I have behind me right now is Rusty the boa, but we're also going to be feeding our other 4 as well. And before we get started, I'll just introduce you to Rusty here. So Rusty is a common boa, or boa constrictor, species that is native in South America predominantly, gets up into Central America a little bit, but it's pretty popular in the pet trade, so they're invasive in a few places too these days. And Rusty has been here for about 1.5 years now. He's actually our newest snake that we have here, but he was a pet before he was here, so he came to us very used to getting handled, very used to getting touched. And what we are going to be feeding all of our snakes today are rats and mice of various sizes. So Rusty is our second biggest snake, so he's going to be getting our second biggest rat. And so full disclosure for everybody, I have here a casserole dish that is full of dead rats and mice. So if you don't want to see dead rats and mice, you've now been warned. And so you can see here, biggest rat's going to go to the biggest snakes, and we're going to scale right down to that. So like I said, he's number 2, so he's going to get our second biggest rat. And Rusty tends to be a pretty voracious eater. Like I said, he's been here about 1.5 years, and I don't think he's skipped a feeding the entire time we've had him. And like I said, we offer food every 2 weeks here. And Rusty is an adult snake. He is maybe 15 years old right now. And you saw he struck right at it there, and what you'll see him doing is curling up around it. So like I said, they are constrictors, so the way they kill their prey is they grab it, they wrap around it, and they squeeze it to death. Obviously, our rat is already dead, but he doesn't necessarily know that right off the bat. So we get the rats dead, we buy them frozen, we just buy them by the gallon, we buy them by volume. And the way that we prep them is basically we pull them out in the morning, we put them in a bucket of water, we let them thaw out, and then right before we take them out on the floor, we throw them in the microwave for about 1 minute, so they're a little bit warmer. And so, different microwave than what we used in like the break room. We have a special rat microwave here. And so what you'll see is that they're a little warmer than what room temperature is. So you'll see him grab onto it, hold onto it until he's confident that it's dead. And so you'll see him wait until it gets down to room temperature, basically. So sometimes that takes 10, 15 minutes or so. And then he'll start swallowing it. You'll also notice that we have newspapers on the bottom here. Like I said, the way that we thaw these rats out is we put them in a bucket of water. So these rats are still pretty wet when they come out a lot of the time. And that substrate you're seeing on the bottom, that tree bark, is stuff that will stick to those rats. And they can swallow a little bit of it and be fine, but we want to avoid having them swallow a bunch of that substrate with their food. And so that's why we put the newspaper down. It's mostly just a placemat for him. But we'll let him work on that. Like I said, it's probably going to be a little while, so he'll be one that we'll check back up on towards the end. And we're going to swing around to Sally here, the hognose snake. Sally is our smallest snake. Sally is also the only snake that we have here at the Science Center that is a native of Minnesota. We'll actually yank the sign off for a electric view angle for y'all. And so because Sally is the smallest snake, Sally is getting the smallest mouse. This is what's called a fuzzy. And so fuzzies are juvenile mice that only recently got their fur, basically. And Sally is one of our more senior snakes here. And one of the issues Sally has started having recently is that Sally has what I think are cataracts in both eyes now. And so Sally does not see very well, so the actual grabbing of the mouse can be a challenge for him. But you'll see he kind of got it on the side there, and so one of the things you'll see Sally doing as he's holding it there is he's going to start working his way around to the head. Because these guys want to swallow their food whole, and the easiest way to do that is head first. So if they strike and they hit the side of it, like I said, they're going to spend a bunch of time rotating around to get around to the head to swallow it. And hognose snakes are a little unique in that they are, as far as I know, the only snakes that actually do chew their food a little bit. Otherwise, everyone else just fully is swallowing their food whole. It's such a unique thing among snakes that if you look at the scientific name of the hognose snakes, the genus name is Heterodon, which means different tooth. And so they have like a very molar-like tooth in the back of their mouth that they, like I said, use to crunch and chew a little bit. And I think for our next one, Sophie, we're actually going to have Spencer do the feeding for this one. So Spencer is my man on the camera here today, and he's relatively new here, so he's actually never been here for a snake feeding before, so we're going to give him a shot to feed Sophie the corn snake. And Sophie is another one that very much tends to strike directly at hers. And so hopefully this will be an exciting one for you, so this one. And corn snakes are probably the singular most popular species of pet snake out there. They're known for being very handleable. They come in a million different colors, a million different sizes, are very comfortable in a lot of different conditions compared to a lot of snakes. So I saw a strike there. Wasn't quite sure on it though, might come back around and try it again. Just let it go. So she's got a good grip on it by the head, so she's going to start swallowing that probably pretty quick. She tends to get hers down a lot quicker than Rusty does. And Sophie's kind of unique. Like I said, corn snakes are a type of snake that comes in a lot of different colors. And they do come in a lot of different colors naturally, but because of their popularity in the pet trade, they also have a lot of unnatural colors that they come in as well. And so Sophie's pattern is one that you would not ever see in a wild corn snake. She's what's called amelanistic. So she's been bred basically to not produce melanin, which is similar to albinism, but a little different in that with albinism you don't make any pigments. So she just doesn't make melanin, but she does make some other ones, and that's where the colors that you are seeing are coming from. And we have, next up is going to be Jeannie, the ball python. And I see Anne just walked up. Anne is another one of our new staffers here who has not done a snake feeding before. So maybe we will get Anne to come up here and feed
Jeannie.
Feed Jeannie the ball python.
Hey Jeannie, are you hungry today?
And Jeannie is our senior-most snake here, both in age and tenure. We've had her for over 10 years at this point, and she is probably at least in her mid-20s age-wise. So,
this one?
yeah. So I tried to right at the base of the tail. There you go. So Jeannie is probably the least likely of our snakes to strike. She a lot of times will not go right for the rat as soon as we put it in. So ball pythons, more so than even most snakes, tend to take long breaks in between feedings. A ball python is very capable of going for months and months and even sometimes years at a time without eating. So we offer food every 2 weeks here, but that's way more food than what most of these snakes need. And so we, particularly with like the bigger snakes like Jeannie and the boas, we're feeding them more often than what they need, and we're just expecting that they're going to skip meals pretty regularly. So Jeannie might skip 3/4 of her meals. She tends to go in streaks, is what I find, where she'll eat several times in a row, but then she'll take 2-3 months off without eating after that. And a lot of times when she does take her food, she takes it overnight. So she tends to be a little shy, and so what we'll do is, we boop her in the nose with it, we let her know it's there, and we'll just leave it on the newspapers, and a lot of times, like I said, overnight she'll come and she'll grab it. And our final snake that we're going to be offering food to is going to be our other boa over here. So that is Artemis. And Artemis is another common boa, so she is actually the same species as Rusty, the first one that we fed. She tends to be a little bit more shy of an eater as Rusty. She tends to not actually strike at it as much. And she's another one who, like I said, oftentimes will just kind of skip a feeding every once in a while. But she's another one of our newer snakes here. The other thing that's kind of interesting about Artemis right now is that she has a shed coming up, probably in the next week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. And it's not uncommon for them to skip feedings around sheds. It's just a pretty normal thing for them. And so if she doesn't take this one right away, I won't be surprised. Her tank is not ideal for reaching in there and feeding either, which is why I very rarely have other people besides me do this one. In there, find her head. So kind of like with Jeannie, I'm just going to let her know it's there, kind of boop her out of here so we can see her face. She doesn't seem super interested in it. But just like we did with Jeannie, what we'll do is we'll leave it in there, and she, like I said, more often than not will take it, but a lot of times she tends to be a little shy. She doesn't like to do it in front of the crowd, it seems like. So a lot of times it'll disappear before the end of the day, and if it doesn't disappear before the end of the day, a lot of times it'll disappear overnight. So like I said, she has a shed coming up, and around, like right around a shed tends to be a time when they will skip, kind of regardless of other conditions. So we get her wrapped up, and you want to go back over to Rusty? So now Rusty should be pretty deep into his rat, I assume, if he's not already fully done with it. And he's still working on it a little bit here. But a couple cool things that we can see with Rusty here, maybe, and we'll back the camera up so the crowd can see a little bit. Keep it in frame, but we'll get a little room for the live crowd here too. A couple things to check out with Rusty while he's swallowing, and he might pull out from underneath himself a little there and give you a better view. A couple interesting things about snakes, sort of the core, like, defining signature physical trait of snakes is their jaw. And so we talked about how Sally, the hognose snake, is really the only snake that we have here that actually chews their food at all. And like part of that is this very unique structure that snakes have to their jaw, where their jaw is held together very loosely with very loose connective tissue that is designed to spread out and stretch and kind of pull apart. And so you'll hear about snakes unhinging their jaws sometimes, is the way it's phrased a lot of the times. But it's actually so they can open their jaw way wider than we can. They can open it almost a whole 180 degrees. But the other thing that snakes can do that's kind of cool is they can actually spread their jaw out too. So their jaw isn't fused in the middle, so they can spread it apart. So snakes can actually swallow food that's bigger than their own head is. And you'll see him, like I said, working its way down there. And they can move each side of their jaw independently. So that's kind of how they get it down, is they move one side and then the other until it goes down. Another little cool feature that you'll see every once in a while when he's got a real full mouth that he's working with is the way that their trachea, their windpipe works, is they can actually poke their trachea out too. So every once in a while you'll see a little tube pop out sometimes. That's him taking a breath, basically. While he's got his mouth open here, you can probably see his teeth as well in there. They're very, very small. So a lot of people are afraid of snake bites, but if they're not a venomous snake, you really have no reason to be afraid of them, because the teeth are tiny, their bite is very weak. Like I said, I've not been bitten by Rusty, but I've been bitten by snakes almost as big as Rusty, and it's genuinely a Band-Aid. Like, could not hurt you even if you really wanted to. Like I said, because the teeth are very, very, very tiny, but they're very specialized. They're very little, but they are really specifically hook-shaped. And there are all these little hooks that all point towards the back of their mouth, and they're designed to grab and hold a thing and not let it back out, basically. Because you can imagine in the wild, a lot of times when they're grabbing this stuff, it's not an already dead thing, it's a live thing. And they don't want it squirming back out of their mouth while they're trying to swallow it. So they have all these little teeny tiny hook-shaped teeth that they use to grab and hold a thing until it dies. And then those teeth also help to basically direct it down their throat. And you get to see kind of all the loose skin they have up around their head, and see how stretchy they are, how much loose skin there is there. What's even cool too is you can see we have an interesting thing we talk about snakes is we hear us refer to this as a snake skin. Really, it's not snake skin, it's the outer layer of snake scales. The skin is underneath the scales, and so you don't get to see the actual skin very often, but when they're swallowing and they're kind of stretched out, that's like one of those rare opportunities where you actually get to see the skin, because the scales spread out enough that you can see the skin between the scales. But yeah, I think that's pretty close to a wrap here, so thank you to what remains of our live audience here. Thank you to what remains of our internet audience here. Like I said, we do these shows every day at 3:30, so if this wasn't for you, you can turn in on a different day and hopefully find some new subject matter, new educator, new topic that maybe is more interesting for you. Once again, big shout outs to the Beltrami Electric Co-op for underwriting these shows for us. And our schedule actually just changed relatively recently, so we were shut down on limited hours for most of the COVID quarantine time, but we've just recently gone back to our regular hours, so we're back to being open 7 days a week. So we're open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5 o'clock, and then we are open Sundays from 1 to 5. And so you can come in anytime. Happy to see you, happy to have you there. I like having live audiences for these things. A lot easier to bounce off of than the camera and the microphone are, so come in, see one live. You might even get to participate depending on what the show is, but once again, thank you for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.